Well, hello, welcome to the 17th chapter of the book of Matthew. We're continuing on with Jesus as he travels through in Galilee. And the verse it starts, Ke meth imeris ex paralamvani o Isus ton Petron, ke Iacovon, ke Ioannin, ton adelphon avtu. And after 6 days, ex, we have a hexagram. Ephemeral is the derivative for emeris, days. Jesus takes with himself Peter and James and John, his brother, Adelphia, Philadelphia, city of brotherly love. So the derivative is the Adelphia part of it. Ke anaferi aftus is oros ipsilon kat ethian, and bears them unto a high mountain in private. Now, they were up in Caesarea Philippi, in the last chapter. So right near Caesarea Philippi, we'll go to our map here, and we'll see that Mount Hermon is real close to it. So I think that's probably the mountain that he went up. It's fairly long. I mean, these mountains are only a couple thousand feet tall. I'm not sure about Hermon, maybe a little bit taller than that. It sort of went lengthwise, so it wasn't too far to go up there for him. Ke metamorphothi and prostenopton, and he was transformed in front of them. And there we have the word derivative from this word, metamorphosis, a change of a larva into a butterfly, and that's where the word transliteration, and he was transformed in front of them. Ke elamson to prosopon avtu os o Elios, and his face radiated as the sun. Elios, helium is the derivative. What does that remind us of? It reminds me of Moses when he was up in the Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights. When he came down, it didn't say that his face irradiated. It was glorified in Exodus. That's what it says. And it was only his face. But here, his face radiated as the sun. That's a way brighter than the brightness that Moses had in his face. Ta the imatia avtu, and the garments of his, ageneto levka ostophos, and his garments became white as the light. So this is very bright. It was also his clothes. Everything around him was shining. Levka, we have leukemia as a white blood cells affects them, and phosphorus is a derivative. And verse 3, Ke idhu, and behold, ophthison aftis Moises ke Elias met avtu. And Moses and Elijah appeared to them with him. Silaluntas, conversing together. I've heard where Moses never made it into the promised land, but then people trickily say, well, he actually did make it into the promised land. People were, where did he make it in the promised land? Well, he made it here, but I don't think this was the promised land either, because if it was up Mount Hermon, I don't know if that would be considered Israel or not, but it's in Syria, really, so I don't know if that little tricky saying really works. But anyway, in verse 4 continues, Apokrithis the o Petros ipento Isu. And responding, Peter said to Jesus, Kyrie, Lord, kalon estin imas odeine. It is good for us to be here. Ithelis, if you want, pisomen odi tris skinas. We shall make here 3 tents. Simeon, ke Moisi, Mian, ke Mian Elia. To you one, and to Moses one, and one to Elijah. Verse 5, Etiavtu laluntos, yet of his speaking, Idhu, behold, Nepheli, Photini, episkias and aftus, a cloud giving light. There's the photon. It has to do with light. Overshadowed them. Cloud giving light overshadowed them. So the cloud has a lot of light in it, and it comes over. Keidu. Phoni ek tis nephelis legusa. A voice, I put the there was to help. A voice from out of the cloud saying, Utos estin o eos mu o agapitos. This is my son, the beloved. And o evdokisa, in whom I take pleasure in. Avtu akuate, hearken to him, in the imperative, the beloved. In Psalms 108:6, it says, I'll read it to you. Well, it actually starts in 5. Be raised up high above the heavens, O God, and above all the earth with your glory, so that your agapiti, your beloved, should be rescued. It's in the plural here, but your beloved ones. So I'm not sure if that really applies to this one here. I was thinking before it was in the singular, but I just noticed it's in the plural. But he uses this word in other places for his beloved ones, or beloved, in whom I take pleasure. Hearken to him, in the imperative. Ke akusantes imathi te, and the disciples hearing, epison epiprosopon afton, fell upon their faces, or their face. Ke were efovithison sphodra, and were fearful exceedingly. There's the phobia, derivative. Ke proselthon o Isus ipsato avton, ke ipen egerthiti ke mi phobiste. So here they're on their face when they hear this voice or sound coming out of this cloud and the light, and they're fearful. I'm sure when we stand in front of the living God in the judgment or wherever, we're going to be on our faces too. A lot of people may think, well, there's nothing to it. But it's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. And here these men didn't even see the fullness, but yet they were fearful enough that they were on the ground. Jesus touched them and said, be not fearful. Hopefully that this is what Jesus will say to us when we're there at the judgment, found guilty, but Jesus will come and hold us, put his arm there and say, don't be fearful. I paid the price for you, and you don't have to go where all the other people are going, into this lake of fire. Verse 8, eparantes they tus ophthalmus avton, and having lifted up their eyes, udena idon imi ton isun monon, they beheld no one except Jesus only. So the apparition is gone, and it's back to normal. And it says here, ke kata venon ton avton apo to orus, and of their going down from the mountain. So they're climbing down. Jesus and this group like to walk a lot and go up into the mountains and wilderness places. And tila to avtis o Isus, Jesus gave charge to them, saying, Midani ipite to orama eos u o eos to anthropu ek necron anasti. No, not to one should you tell the vision. An orama, panorama is a derivative, until of which the Son of Man should rise from out of dead ones. And I mentioned in the last verse about how and even read where the enemies of Jesus, the Jews, knew what he was saying, even though his disciples missed it. Ke epirotisen avton imathite avtu, and his disciples asked him, legonta, saying, Tiun I grammatis legusi, oti Elian the elthin proton. Why do they say that Elijah must come first? And this is referring to Malachi 4, 5, and 6. I'll read that to you. Malachi 4, 5, and 6. It says, "And behold, I will send to you Elijah the prophet before the coming day of the Lord, the great and apparent, the one who shall restore the heart of the father to his son, and the heart of a man to his neighbor, lest coming I strike the earth entirely." Elijah didn't die. He was one of the few people that in the Bible that didn't die. And we go back to 2 Kings 2:11, and it has the story about how, I'll read that to you also. "And it came to pass of their going and speaking, that behold, a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and they drew apart between both." That was Elijah and Elisha. "And Elijah was taken up in a rumbling into the heaven." So Elijah was taken up, and so he's to come again, it says. Some people think that Revelations 11, 3, and 10 refer to this. It's a possibility. I'm not exactly sure. I go along with it, but it may be somebody else. But Revelations 11:3, it says, "And I will give to my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, wearing sackcloth." And it goes on all the way down. And then 10, it says, "And the ones dwelling upon the earth shall rejoice over them, and shall be glad, and shall send gifts to one another. For these 2 prophets tormented the ones dwelling upon the earth. And after 3.5 days, the breath of life from out of God entered unto them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon all the ones viewing them." And so you can read that. It's all in the 11th chapter of the book of Revelation. I'm not sure if those 2 prophets are, a lot of people think it's Elijah. Some people think Elijah and Zerubbabel, and Elijah and Moses, because they both appeared here. Possibly. And in verse 12, "Lego they emin oti Elias ithi elthi." And I say to you that Elijah already came, "Ke ukepegnosen avton," and they did not recognize him. "Al episen en avto osa ethelison," but they did to him as much as they wanted. "Utoke o eos tu anthropu meli paskin ep avton." So also the Son of Man is about to suffer by them, the Jews. "Tote siniken I mathite oti peri Ioannu tu baptistu ipanavtis." Then the disciples perceived that concerning John, the one immersing, he spoke to them. In other places, as if you can understand it or take it in, John is a type of Elijah. Verse 14, it continues, "Ke elthonton avton proston oklon prosilthen avto anthropos." There came forward to him a man. "Goni peton avto ke legon," kneeling to him and saying, "Kyrie eleison mu ton ion," show mercy on my son. "Oti seliniazate," for he acts lunatic. "Ke kakos paski," and suffers badly. Some people may think, well, I'm using the word a lunatic. People don't like to use that word today, and it's an older-fashioned word, like you're crazy, and they don't like it. But it's interesting because luna has to do with the moon, and they call it moonstruck. But in here, in the Greek, it's seleniazate. The selene is the moon. So it actually comes all the way back here into the Greek. Then it goes through the Latin, luna, to the English, lunatic. And he suffers badly. "Polachis gar pipti is topir," for often he falls into the fire. "Ke polachis is toidor," and often into the water. Water, we have hydro, edor, the ha sign a lot of times, and people put the H in the beginning in the English. In verse 16, "Ke prosinenka avton tis mathite su," and I brought him to your disciples. "Ke uka idinithison avton therapevse. And they were not able to cure him, the therapeutics. They were not able to cure him. So they were, I don't know, doing all kinds of things, and the poor boy was still acting up and doing whatever so they could tell that he wasn't cured. Apokrithiste o Isus ipon, and responding, Jesus said, O genea apistos ke diastrameni, O unbelieving and perverted generation. The genea and the genere, there's a transliteration there. They're unbelieving and perverted. Now, he's talking to the generation that he was in, this generation that he was in. I think maybe all generations, hard to say. Eos pote eso me met imon. Until when shall I be with you? Eos pote anexo me imon. Until when shall I endure you? Ferete mi avton odi. Bring him here. Bring him to me here, in the imperative. Who's he talking to? How long should I endure you? Is he talking to the man that brought the son, or is he talking to the disciples that couldn't cure? Or is he talking to all of the people that were there that were unbelieving and perverted, maybe the Jews? Or is he possibly talking to us? How long shall I endure you? Bring him here to me. Ke epatimison avto o Isus. And Jesus reproached him. Ke exilthen apavtu to daimonion. And the demon came forth from him. So here it says there's a demon in this person. Like I said before in different places, a demon, people today can't handle it saying it's a demon, but really when you look at the DNA and why our DNA has instructions to attack its host or itself in form of cancers and things, who knows what these instructions come from, why people do what they do. And I guess getting a name there, a demon, you have to call it something, I suppose. And this is what it was. Ke atherapeuthi o pace, apo tis ora sekinis. Ke, the child was cured from that hour. So it's a child. Oras, an hour, was a transliteration. Tote proselthontes imathite to isu kat idian. Then the disciples, having come forward to Jesus in private, Ipon said, Theati imis uk idinithimen ekvalin avto. Why were we not able to cast it out? There's other places he sent them out and they had the power, but here they don't. And they weren't able. And Jesus continues and says, O thei sus ipanaftis, and Jesus said to them, Theatin apistian imon. Again, because of your unbelief. Amen, gar, for amen, lego imin, I say to you, ean echite, pistin os kokon sinapios, if you have belief as a kernel of mustard, erite to ori tuto, you shall say to this mountain, metavithi, and tevthen keki, be crossed over from here to there. Ke metavisate, and it will cross over. Ke uden adinatisi imin, and nothing shall be impossible to you. Now, what's he saying right here? If you have belief, if you have a little bit of belief, basically, he's saying you don't have any belief. They have unbelief, in fact, and so if you have unbelief, you don't have any belief, and this is where it was, and Jesus is bringing this out. If you had belief, but do we have belief? Well, there's different kinds of belief. I think the belief here, and I see it in other places, is who really had the belief? Jesus had the belief. Jesus knew that when he died and suffered, he would rise again, and he went to the cross because he knew all things, and he had the belief. And only we have what we believe in Jesus, but believing in Jesus means that His belief is what delivers us, not we're so strong that we can do it. Because if we had belief, and these men here are walking with Jesus, seeing him all the time, if they don't have belief and they have unbelief, how about us that have never seen Jesus and haven't walked the earth with him? And we may believing in Jesus, I believe, is believing in the belief of Jesus. And it says that in Romans. We'll get to that later. And Jesus had the belief, and he was able to do anything. I could pull a mountain over if he wanted. He was God. And then in verse 21 continues, Tuto they to genos uk ekporevete imi en prosevki kenistia. But this kind does not go forth except by prayer and fasting. So even then, he's saying that it's a kind, a genos, a genus in classifications of animals. This kind does not go forth except by prayer and fasting. This kind of demon, maybe. Verse 22, Anastrephomenon they afton inti Galilea. And of their returning into Galilee, so now we'll go back up to the, I'll wait here in a second. They went back into Galilee, and Epen aftis o Isus, and Jesus said to them, Meli o ios tu anthropu paradidhoste is hieras anthropon. The Son of Man is about to be delivered up into the hands of men. 23, Ke apokatenusin afton, and they shall kill him. Ke ti triti imera egerthisite, and the third day he shall be raised up. Ke elipithison sphodra, and they fretted exceedingly. I'm not even sure if they understood this whole thing. They said he says he's going to be killed, so they probably understood this. The third day he shall be raised up. Apparently they didn't. But like I said, the enemies did. And then it continues in 24. Elthonton they afton is Capernaum. So let's go back to the map now. And we'll see that he was up here in Mount Hermon, and now they're all the way back down here to Capernaum, right on the Sea of Galilee, right on the edge. Prosilthon I ta dithrakma lamvanontes to Petro. Came forward the ones receiving the double drachma, the temple tax. To Petro, to Peter. Then come to Jesus. Ke ipen, o didaskalo Simon, your teacher. The didactics is teaching. Ut telita, does he not fulfill the drachma, the double drachmas? In 25, legi, Peter. Nay, yes. Ke ote esiolthen istin ikian, and when he entered into the house, proephthasen afton o Isus, Jesus anticipated him. So Peter's making the decision, yeah, he's going to pay the tax. Legon, saying, Jesus anticipated him, saying, Tisi thoki Simon, what do you think, Simon? Ivasalis tis gis, the kings of the earth. Apotinon lamvanusi teli I kinison, from whom do they receive taxes or tribute? Apoton ionafton, I apoton alotrion, from their sons or from the strangers? Well, their sons aren't taxed, and the sons get the money, so it's the strangers. Legi afto o Petros, apoton alotrion, Peter says to him, from the strangers. Ephi afto o Isus, and Jesus said to him, Ara ge eleftheri isin ii. Well, it is so indeed. The sons are free. So he's relating himself being the son, and Jesus, and the strangers that paid the tax were the Jews. Jesus really didn't need to pay this tax because he's the son. But he says, Ina they me scandalisomen aftus, but that we should not stumble them. Porevthis is tin thalason. Having gone to the sea, and Capernaum is right next to the sea, vale ankristron, ballistic is a derivative, throw a hook. Ke ton anavenon ta proton ikthin aron. And the first fish ascending take. Ke anixus to stoma aftu, and having opened its mouth, evrisis statira, you will find a stater, which is a coin. I put that in italic. Ekinon lavon, thos aftis antiamu kesu, that having taken, give it to them for me and you. So Peter goes down, sure, and catches the first fish, opens it up, and here's the stater coin, and pays the temple tax. Wish my taxes were paid like that. But they're not. And next chapter, 18, we'll go into here in this argument among the disciples. And I hope you'll join us, and God bless.